I'm looking ahead to the winter meetings. I want to see another shoe drop. We wait and we wait and we wait for the big guys to fall. With John Heyman reporting that Cubs offer of 6 years, 138, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know if Lester can expect that number to get any higher. So he's finished his visits. He's seen the teams and talked to the teams that he wants to. You wonder if the Cubs, who they've already got Madden, do they make a big splash at the winter meetings and announce a Lester signing?
Jack, I think this move may be decided even before the winter meetings. I think Lester's got the numbers all in front of him, and I think you're right. I don't think anybody's going to do better than what Chicago has put in front of him. I think even before we get on that plane Sunday, I think John Lester would decide that he wants to play in Wrigley next year.
I think a lot of dominoes are probably going to fall over the next week. If Yankee fans remember, they didn't even sign Jacoby Ellsbury last year until about, I think it was December 3rd is when they made the announcement that they'd come to an agreement. So some things are going to be fluid here. And Bob, to your point, the Yankees don't mind, as we saw last year and the year before, just kind of waiting things out and seeing, because they know that Scott Boras, for example, will always pick up the phone and say, hey, here's what we're doing. What do you think?
Yeah, and you know that he's going to be playing right to the top. He's not going to call Brian Cashman. He is going to call Hal and say, look, you need this guy. Look at what the Jays have done. Look at what the Red Sox have done. Nobody's standing still in this division. And you know what? There's some truth to it right now, because the Yankees are coming off an 84 win, 85 wins the last 2 years. That's not good enough. They have to make another move. And I think that plays right into Scott Boras' wheelhouse, because he has something that they need. They need an ace. I mean, can you tell me that Tanaka's elbow is going to be fine? You can't. Can you tell me that CC Sabathia can win 10 to 12 games next year with 88 miles an hour on that fastball and a bad right knee? You can't. You can't tell me if Ivan Nova's coming back in May or June, or if he's going to have the same stuff. You can't even tell me if Brandon McCarthy's coming back. Scherzer is exactly what the Yankees need, and Boras knows it.
And, you know, a guy like McCarthy, I asked a few people around baseball, what about McCarthy? What are you hearing about with McCarthy? Those types of guys aren't going to sign until some of the bigger fish are off the market, because he wants to have teams clamoring for his services. So until at least a Lester and maybe a Shields or something like that goes, you might have a guy like McCarthy who sits out there in the market because he wants to have his opportunities. I think we're all in agreement. Don't expect Scherzer to sign early, but a guy like McCarthy, it would be so helpful for the Yankees to just know you had him back. You look at what he did as a Yankee. This guy is worth bringing back. He's not your number one, but he's a guy you can rely on.
You know, in our electronic age, Bob, it's easy for GMs to call each other, text each other, whatever, but how much more fluid do things, in your opinion, become at the winter meetings, knowing that everybody's right there? You can walk down the hall, by the way, to Brian Cashman's room or anything else and start a conversation.
Well, there is a lot of face-to-face at the winter meetings, less than you'd think, and certainly less than it was back in the 80s and early 90s. You know, as Jack will remember, when he was at the Times and when I was at the Daily News and the Post, then it used to be FaceTime and you actually running into people, and that's how deals were made at the bar, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's much less now. In fact, for instance, Billy Beane doesn't even stay at the Winter Meetings Hotel. He stays in a remote location. I think he's probably running away from A's fans right now because of what he just did with Donaldson. But a lot of it is texting and instant messaging, and, you know, it's done electronically. But it's really just sort of like a convention or a carnival to sort of promote the sport. You don't really have to have it. All you have to do is just get on your phone, on your iPhone, and just send an iMessage. The deal can be done that way as well.
The temperature does increase, though, and I think once you get all of those people, even if Billy's not there, once you get all those people under the same roof, you can't buy a car until you walk in the showroom. You're not buying a house until you actually walk through the door. You can make a trade without having the guy from the opposing team being 5 floors below you, but I think that the pressure on some of these executives increases a little bit, too. You're hearing from your owners. You're hearing from your fan base. Now, the good executives, they're smart enough to not listen to all that and make the deal when it works for them. But I do think that even the adrenaline starts to pick up for the guys who've done it year after year.
Yeah, there's a little bit more of a buzz, and sometimes that happens with free agents, and you wonder if that gets back to the GMs. For example, next week, will we start hearing about 4-year deals for David Robertson or Andrew Miller?
Well, we're already hearing about him, so I think we're still going to continue to hear about that. And that's one thing, Bob, as I hear about that and I wonder about the Yankees and how the Yankees have kind of said, listen, 3 years might be our bottom line. If you're a Yankee fan and you do want to dream, you can dream about this. Say they figured out a way to get Robertson and Miller in the fold. Now you have Robertson, you have Miller, and you have Betances. You start to say that that could rival what the Royals had this year with Herrera, Davis, and Holland. And when you have 3 guys at the end of the game who can come in and get strikeouts, that can make a manager's job so much easier.
I could manage the Yankees if I could nail down the last 9 outs like that. It's a great lineup. But you know what? I still think you have to have a lead to give them. You still have to have somebody anchor that rotation in through innings 1 through 5 or 6. So I'm going to sound like a broken record. They need an ace. The Yankees need an ace. They need Max Scherzer really bad.
All right, so let me kind of wrap things up with this. If Brian Cashman is there next week, he can only get one thing done. What would that one thing be that he needs to get done?
Well, the one thing would be a starter, but I can't give you that answer because I don't think that anything was going to get done with Scherzer, and I don't think somebody like McCarthy is going to get done because the other pieces aren't in place. So I would say a bullpen thing. I would think that something bullpen-wise could happen.
Disagree. And you're right about Scherzer. That's not going to happen until January. I think what Brian has to do is he's got to get Brandon McCarthy. I mean, that's a given. That's got to be the foundation of next year's rotation. Regardless of all the other accessories around it, he has to get Brandon McCarthy to sign. You know,
one thing we're talking about in the previous segment with regard to the Yankees, Prado will be on the team, second or third, we think. Brian McCann is there as well. And, Jack, you've sort of addressed this on past shows. The fact that they were – well, Prado joined the team mid-season, but deferential in a way. They're leaders, but it was Derek Jeter's team. Jeter's not going to be there next year. Do those guys fill that void?
I think McCann especially needs to be a guy who fills that void. He plays a position on the field that has leader written all over it. And you can see he was a leader with the Braves, and I do think he took a back seat because of Jeter. I think he has to have a better year offensively. That goes without saying. And I think that leadership role definitely becomes more of his.
Jack, you're right. He is the guy. He could be the guy, but he's not that guy yet. I mean, McCann, to me, looks like he lacks confidence. He's not sure of himself. I'm not even sure he's in the right market yet. He deserves a second shot at it without Jeter. Somebody's got to step up. The Yankees need it to be him, but right now, there's still a big gap there.